Hello, I just want to put this YouTube out for discussion. It's one that I haven't really started researching fully yet, and I'd love to hear your views and if anybody's got statistics and things like that, to please write in and share their views on this. But I'm worried about the boundaries between mental health issues and crime. And I was affected by it as a probation officer, very much so. And at different episodes in my life, I've come across this sort of issue, and it really worries me. And my main concern is that, are we as a society doing enough to help people with mental health problems? And, are people being misdiagnosed or not diagnosed correctly and then going on to perform, quite dangerous behaviours? Now, there was that tragic incident when the two young students in Nottingham were killed, and an elder gentleman, I think he was a caretaker or something like that, was killed by somebody who clearly had very serious mental health problems. And could have this been stopped if that person had been given the appropriate care and kept in hospital or whatever? Now, interestingly, I grew up in the home counties, and where I lived, the town where I lived, there are numerous hospitals, psychiatric hospitals, mental health hospitals in the area where I grew up. And gradually, nearly all of them over the years have been shut down and the land sold off and houses put on them, and a lot of money has been made out of selling the land and putting properties on these great big old Victorian mental health institutions, if you like. And when I remember when they were closed down, there were quite a lot of people in these hospitals. They didn't really know why they were there. And shockingly, some women were caught up in these institutions and became quite institutionalised, really, in that they'd given birth to children out of wedlock. And for that reason, they were placed into these mental health hospitals. And it seems outrageous now, doesn't it, that kind of attitude persisted all those years ago, and these people ended up being in these hospitals and being able to so institutionalised that they found it difficult to care for themselves later in life. And indeed, what they kind of, out of some of the hospitals, they took over some houses in the town centre and converted them into hostel type places, where some of these people went to live with sort of support. And around that time, back in the 1990s, I was training as a probation officer, and on the course that I was on at college, one of my fellow students, and I met the guy, her partner was killed by somebody with mental health problems on the London Underground, and I'd only met with them a few days before socially for a drink, and the guy was a lovely guy, musician, was killed with somebody who had chronic mental health problems, and he was killed on the Underground. And that sparked an inquiry, and it was found that that different agencies all knew worrying things about this man, and that if they'd shared their information more effectively, perhaps that death could have been prevented. And that followed. So what followed that was the creation of multi-agency risk panels, MAPPers, where agencies all get together and discuss worrying cases and prevent risks that way. But what really worries me now is that a friend of mine, and I'm going to be very discreet, I'm not going to give away genders or names or places, because a friend of mine, his partner had, there was an incident, and that triggered psychosis, in my opinion. And their partner kind of went a bit mad in a shop and caused quite considerable criminal damage, about £600 worth. Police called, arrested, and the person taken to court, and there was a bit of a argy-bargy in the cells and things like that, resulting in this person being remanded in custody. But at some point it would appear that and the person was remanded in prison, okay? But at some point it would appear that a decision was made that this was mental health issues possibly, and the shop concerned decided to stop prosecution given that it would appear there were mental health issues. But what worries me is somehow or other, this person was released back to the address, to my friend's address, and the police didn't check if that was okay with my friend for the person to go and live at that address. And again, mental health issues happened again in that flat. It was flooded and there was damage done to the flat. And my friend called the police and said, look, and the police actually said, you better get out of that address and go round to a family's address, otherwise you could be in risk. But I kind of thought, why was the person released in the first place? And why wasn't that person in a mental health hospital, And I get the impression that, and do write in with your comments, but I get the impression that mental health issues are on the increase and have been on the increase since the pandemic. And this is worrying. And I'm worried that our mental health institutions, whether they're coping adequately. And I myself felt very poorly last year, and I was in A&E. And I will add that although I was in there for a long time, I was so impressed with the staff at my local A&E. They were fantastic. They took really good care of me. They were monitoring me. And, I was impressed with things like they put me in a scanner and they saw, there could be issues. They took blood tests and the results came back. And I never realised that A&E could perform that kind of quickly. And there was a guy there who had an accident in A&E to his leg, and blow me, a plastic surgeon came in and sorted him out, early in the morning. And I thought that was fantastic. But what really shocked me were these people with apparent mental health issues were sitting around in the casualty in the A&E department, accompanied by police. And at one point, I think there were about 8 police officers in the A&E department, all sitting there for hours, accompanying these people who appeared very mentally ill. And one of the guys was standing up saying, "You can't keep me, I want to die," and all this sort of thing. Most of the police were quite good at dealing with these people, but some of them, I don't think, had those sort of good people skills. One or two seemed to make the situation worse, really, by perhaps being a bit over confrontational. But it's difficult, isn't it? But I kind of thought, what are the police doing there? And why aren't these people going straight to be assessed straight away in a mental health place? What's going on? Why are they sitting for 12 hours in an A&E department with the police? Can't the police be doing other things, protecting us and dealing with burglaries or whatever, So I think, and recently, I haven't heard any more about it, but I remember that there was a guy running down the train with a knife and trying to stab people, apparently mental health issues, and that's all gone quiet. But is there a mental health crisis happening in the UK? Are people not being diagnosed as mentally ill when they perhaps should be? Now, about 20 odd years ago, I was a probation officer, and I had a guy on a probation order to me for a relatively minor offence. But what worried me was at the outset, he had previously mental health issues, And as soon as he got probation, everything was withdrawn from this guy, all support. He was in a hostel and he was thrown out. He was asked to leave the hostel due to his bad behaviour. He used to have a social worker, but the social worker moved to another area and wasn't replaced. And I ended up being the only carer of this person. And what I kept taking this person up to the mental health hospital and asked that he be assessed because he appeared to be in crisis and to have serious delusional thoughts. And, you know, he thought tables were talking to him and weird behaviour. But every time they said there was nothing wrong with him. And that really worried me. And I got quite upset in that. I didn't understand why he was on probation in the first place. He appeared at court one day and he made flowers out of the toilet paper and things like that. And the magistrates didn't really know what to do with him. They summoned me to court, to tell them what was going on. And for me, the situation escalated and escalated and escalated till he started doing really weird attention-seeking behaviour, really to seek help from the mental health services, who were saying, "Oh no, he's got a personality issue. He ain't mentally ill," and clearly he was, because he was having psychosis, in my opinion. So I actually feel for the police, because I think they're having to deal with a lot of this mental health stuff when possibly they shouldn't be. I was pleased to hear in my case that the shop dropped the prosecution against this guy, because in a way people with mental health issues need to be diverted away from the criminal justice system. But apparently there are plenty in prison with mental health issues that perhaps shouldn't be there and should be in mental health hospitals or secure mental health units or something. It's a really worrying issue, this, that I think as well, why is it that apparently that more mental health issues seem to be growing in the UK? Do people have more people skill problems and things like that? I do wonder. I think, is it on the increase since we use technology more and there's less socialising going on and interactions going on? It worries me. So do contribute and write in me your thoughts. I'll be really pleased to hear from you. All the very best now. Bye-bye.